hand it over to Mahipal. So Mahipal Ganji is a postdoc at the Max Planck Institute for Biochemistry in Munich, in Germany. And so over to you, Mahipal, to share your experiences and advice as an MSCA Fellow.
Thank you, Shantala. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to share my experiences with the future MSCA Fellows, I hope. Some of them at least, I hope. So here I'm going to show you, basically talk about my past experiences and then, what I'm doing now, what I'm going to do in future and some of my advices. So basically I did my bachelor's from a college in Karimnagar. It's like one of the towns in Telangana in 2006. And then I did a MSc, a Masters of Science in Physics from Usmania University. And after that, I got an opportunity to do another master's that was in nanobiophysics. It's more interdisciplinary science, and then the training was itself in more research. That was from Technical University of Dresden, that was in Germany. From there, I got an opportunity to do PhD in the Netherlands. So again, this university is also technical university, but it's a University of Delft. So that was my PhD. After that, I did another short postdoc in the Netherlands in the same university, basically same department, but in a different lab. So that was almost 1.5 years. And after that, I basically applied for this Marie Curie Fellowship and then moved to Germany in Max Planck Institute for Biochemistry. That's where I'm currently am doing my postdoc. I'm almost finishing my fellowship. The end of this month is the end of my fellowship. All right. Shantala, can you? Yeah. So the question that arises, like, why you choose to apply for a fellowship? So the one reason that, we all want to do postdoc because we want to get an experience to become a sort of a PI in the future, a PI in the sense like an assistant professor or a group leader. That's the sort of a prerequisite, like everyone needs sort of that experience. Of course, there are exceptions for that, but most of us need an experience as a postdoc. So a postdoc, what does that basically what do you want to get trained as a postdoc is to be an independent researcher where you can sort of see that you can do your research yourself. So in that sense, writing a fellowship that says something like you sort of come up with idea and then shape your fellowship, so the grant application yourself and then applied and then you sort of gather the money yourself to do research. So that's sort of puts in nice perspective that you're sort of ready to take the next position if you have such a fellowship. So Marie Curie Fellowship is one of those fellowships. There are many other fellowships, of course, but Marie Curie is more European fellowship, which allows for the people to move between the countries and then take research in a sort of a different field, slightly different field than what you did PhD. You did your PhD. So that was the main motivation. And then, so my advice is sort of to be probably successful because from my experience what I can say is that always discuss with your mentor what you want to sort of write your project proposal, because your mentor at the start sort of know better in the sense that how you can shape yourself together with your a host lab to come up with a project idea. Once you have that idea, of course it's up to you how you want to sort of materialize in terms of writing a story, how you want to tell the reviewers why you are suitable candidate. So that's where you need to describe the importance of your project in the proposal very well. I mean, how it's sort of stands out in the context of relevant to the public or whatever be it, depending on the field. Of course, as a biologist, we want to show is it useful for healthcare, as it's a basic bioscience. MSCA Marie Curie Fellowship basically allows any of those ideas. It can be really basic biology that you're dealing with, or application oriented, and show that you have really big ambitions that you can sort of put in your application. Once you put in your application, it shows that you're the motivated candidate. You're sort of taking that big ambitions with you so that you can deal with this particular small project that you're writing in the fellowship. But this small project is sort of opening up a lot of different directions, or at least sort of have a next steps that allow you to take up the career, as academician, or even to move to the industry. Also sort of describe that in very well, how that will help you. That's what I would say. And another thing I would say that have the draft ready, sort of well in advance. If it is like ready by now, it would be great, or maybe in 2 weeks, like because of the deadline is in 2 weeks. Like if you have like in the coming days, that's already great. Then what you need to do is that from there, start to get feedback from your colleagues, like from as many people as possible. Of course, you cannot get from hundreds of people, but at least like different people who have different knowledge or different background, right? So that they understand whether they understand or not. Like in the end, the reviewers may not be the same people who are sort of in the same field as you're writing your project proposal. So it's important that the people who are outside your field can understand, and then basically evaluate you well. And also from your mentors, as I said, discuss with mentor all the time, sort of like whenever you think you're getting lost or you don't have any ideas. Usually the mentors are there to help you, so don't be feel shy to go talk to them. And also the grant managers, they are really great resources, because they see a lot of grants, like they know where to improve. Usually, like they can definitely pinpoint you if there is any problem in your application there. So I think those are the advices that I can give you. And the another thing, yeah, I can tell you that choose your mentors carefully. Of course, this is only 2 weeks from now. But in general, uh, people who are applying for next year, or people who are thinking of joining labs, different labs, of course. So choose your mentors carefully, in the sense that how those people have similar how to say, understanding, a similar mentality that you can work with, rather than who has just a lab like that, they just let you work. That doesn't help you. You need sort of training in the lab, the training in the sense every day. Then you may not need a how to say, help every day in the lab, because you're sort of a trained researcher after PhD, but you still need a guidance as a transitioning from PhD, a postdoc, to sort of a PI. So there you need the mentors who has sort of big understanding, who can help you in these steps. So these are the three mentors that helped me through my journey. So the first one is actually my current uh, mentor, like Professor Youngman. That's where I'm doing my postdoc in Max Planck Institute for Biochemistry. And the second one is Case Dicker. He was my previous mentor. I did a short postdoc there. And then my PhD mentor is Elio Abondanziri. So these are the three people who really shaped my career. I would say being in their labs, it helped tremendously. So that's one suggestion I can say, that choose mentors carefully, that who can help you. Yeah, so what's next? So for me, basically it's end of this month is my fellowship is ending. That's after that, actually I'm fortunate that I found a PI position in Department of Biochemistry in IISc. I actually just now today landed in India. So I'm in India. So basically I'm going to go there in the next month, and I'll continue to do hopefully some exciting science. And then if I can get to interact with you there more, I'll be very happy to interact. And then if I can sort of suggest you or help you with anything, I'll be very happy to help you. So that's, I think, about me.
Thanks, Mahipal. Thanks for sharing your advices on applying for the MSCA Fellowship. So now over to you, Amey Redkar. So Amey is a postdoc at the University of Cordoba in Spain, and he's going to tell you about his experiences and advices as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shantala, for this invitation. And it's a very pleasure to be here on this webinar to share my thoughts with the audience. So I'm currently based at the University of Cordoba in Spain, where I'm currently pursuing my postdoctoral work with the MSCA Fellowship. So my journey actually started, I work with plant microbe interactions, and I originally come from Pune, where I did my master's at the University of Pune, working on plants and microbes and the microbial diseases. So after my master's, I actually took a 2 years research experience at one of the research institute in Pune itself, again working on plant microbes, which actually fascinated me into this area. And hence I decided to do my PhD in the Max Planck Institute. Just the next hit, please, Shantala. So I actually landed in the Max Planck Institute for Terrestrial Microbiology in Marburg with a DAAD long-term fellowship, where I did my PhD in this institute, again working on a different pathosystem in plants, actually the corn smut. So after my PhD, I actually decided to move to Norwich in UK, where I did my first postdoctoral work at the Sainsbury Lab in Norwich with an EMBO postdoctoral fellowship working on, again, a different system of plant pathogen. So after this postdoctoral work, I then decided that I need to apply and do a second shot postdoc, and was fascinated by the MSCA postdoctoral fellowships and how much freedom they give. So I decided to apply for one of the MSCA fellowship and landed up in Cordoba in Spain, where I am currently based. So next slide, please. So why I wanted to apply for an MSCA fellowship. So as I mentioned, it gives a way free hand, and what and where I decided to come to Cordoba, writing a project whose acronym is Foundation. So it's basically dissecting a cell-specific modulation in one of the pathosystem of a root pathogen in a lovely city in south of Spain called Cordoba, and pursuing my Marie Curie project here. So why I wanted to apply for fellowship, as Mahipal actually mentioned, you get a more free hand as compared to a regular postdoctoral position. And in my perspective, actually, when you are a fellow, you are actually the boss. Because basically, when you are a fellow, you define the questions that you want to address, the approach that you want to take, the funds that you want to spend, and the outputs that you want to deliver in your project. And I think it's a very great chance to basically shape your future. So there are some key points which you have to keep in mind when answering these particular points. So I feel that the questions that you want to propose should be creative enough when you want to write a fellowship. The approach should be innovative enough. Regarding the funds, you can either manage and also be bold enough to suffer rejections, because these are extremely competitive fellowships with a very low success rate. The output should be solid, and it should be based on a high risk, high gain project. So the risk is higher, but the gain is also outstanding in your proposed project. And I think basically the future, it mainly becomes independent or valuable if you are successful in getting one of those brilliant fellowships. So in terms of applying for an MSCA fellowship, in my view, what is MSCA actually looking for? I think there are three key aspects what MSCA actually looks for. The first, it's you as a candidate. So I think MSCA actually needs an evidence why you are actually the right candidate to get an MSCA fellowships. And my tips to actually address this point is by emphasizing, so sell your track record really correctly, do include each and every aspect in it, show your leadership potential honestly, but with evidence. Then you have to be very creative, authority, ambition, as well as demonstrate your independence and outline your career developmental plans quite solid. So the second part of the aspect that MSCA looks for is your project. And I think it should, as Mahipal mentioned, it should be really a high risk, high gain project, which is built on your strength. And you can demonstrate a very strong potential of the project, which has the potential to grow and develop independently. It should also include a very nice future path or your clear-cut vision of where you are going to take the project with or to what level. If possible, it can have an impact and engagement directly with the general audience. I feel like a strong summary and a gripping opener is extremely important to hook the audience when reading your proposal. Add details at the right places, and also plan and highlight your milestones really well. If you have preliminary data, that's a very strong advantage, wherein you can clearly demonstrate that you have established the background needed for the proposed project. Also explain the solution or advancements that your project will actually deliver. And the third key important point is actually your host. So as Mahipal mentioned, a mentor is very, very important, but also the host that you are actually proposing as an institute is also very important. So pick your host uh, carefully, and it's very advantageous if it's hugely complementary to the research area or the proposal that you are proposing for an MSCA project. So interestingly, mobility is an essential criteria in an MSCA fellowship. So you have to move across country or place to pursue an MSCA fellowship. And also consider, when choosing a host, consider the long-term future and the potential of the host to take you forward. So in the next slide, I just have some advice for applicants, which I have actually borrowed from one of the resources that Shantala will share with you. And as I mentioned, acronym is very important. It's very easy. It should be easy to remember by the evaluators, short and easy to pronounce. Abstract is very, very important in actually summarizing your entire proposal and not only your project. Whether the topic is of an European priority, what problem you are trying to solve, and where the project will take you as an independent researcher. So outline what you will achieve as the key goals of these grants. So basically making you completely independent. And in my experience, I feel like an image or a diagram tells you more than several words. So do try to include visuals of images and diagrams wherever possible in your proposal, which helps the evaluator to find a lot of important points in your project proposal that you propose. So I think this is what I wanted to actually give you, and some of the great tips and resources are actually in this links in quite detail, which I think would be very, very helpful for your applications. So thank you very much, and I look forward to answer your questions. So thank you.
Thanks, Amay. So now we move on to the question and answer part of this session. So if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A box or raise your virtual hands and I will get to you shortly. I'm going to stop sharing the screen for now. Okay. So some questions have come in. Sure. Okay, so let's start. So we'll start with some questions that have come in the Q&A box, and in the meantime, those of you who want to ask your questions in person can raise your virtual hands and we'll get to you. Okay. So one of the questions is, what are the main causes of any grant being rejected, in your opinion? Maybe Amay, would you like to start with it?
Yeah, so I think there are several different reasons for rejections. Actually, I think it's very, very helpful to get your proposal actually framed according to the guidelines of the MSCA, because there is a particular format for the evaluation for the reviewers, and it's very important to actually have those keywords that are enlisted in the guidelines also addressing in your proposal. So this helps the reviewer to review your proposal based on whether you have addressed each and every point that is required by the MSCA. So that's one of the reasons, in my view, wherein a grant could be rejected. Also, one personal experience I want to share is there can be a comment from a reviewer where a reviewer thinks that your proposal is over ambitious. So don't actually put too many things, because it's a fellowship for 2 years. And one of the reasons of rejection might also be an over ambitious proposal.
Mahipal, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, so actually I agree with Ame on the second point, that being over ambitious. First, you don't want to write a proposal that takes 10 years, that you want to do it in 2 years. It doesn't work that way, right? But what you can do basically is that say that you have that big ambition that you want to do in next 10 years or so, but then for that I need to do this sort of a basement, sort of you want to establish yourself that what you can do in 2 years. So that's what you want to right? I mean, so that could probably be the way you want to do. But another, like, obvious thing what you can think of is that, that for being rejected, at least in my case, was that when I, wrote my proposal, I was actually not awarded immediately, but I was the first person in the waiting list. So the reason that I got from the reviewer is that I had too few papers for my, after PhD basically. So I only had 2 papers when I applied. So that was sort of on the edge. That was okay, but yeah, I think we need to have a number of more papers. Of course, again, the other things, if you think of basically the institute where you're going, the host lab, as Ame said, I think that greatly impacts. Like if you go to a completely an unrelated institute to the work you're doing, it's difficult to convince the reviewers that you can do that research in that particular institute because you need infrastructure there. I also sort of to discuss with people, also to interact with the people from coming from outside to give talks or whatsoever. Right? So that's sort of you need to have sort of the synchrony.
Thanks, Mahipal. So right now we'll go to a question that can come in live. So Revati, Ravi Shankar, I have given you the permission to talk. Can you unmute yourself and ask your question? And please keep it to a sentence or two. Revati? Okay, so maybe Revati, you can try to unmute yourself. In the meantime, I'll move on to another question. So this question has come in from Chandrika Conver, and it says, how much of our personality should be reflected in our statement of purpose? Or in another way, what is the best way of kind of building a good statement of purpose?
Right. So basically, you really want to say what you have done so far, what your achievements, what are your accomplishments, and then how you want to take those accomplishments forward. So you basically want to explain those from your past experience to the one you are going to gather the experience, how you are going to. It's not always just writing one way proposal that you're great, you're doing amazing, you will do great, but you also want to say that what are the knowledges that you're going to transfer to the host lab, also sort of share between the host lab and yourself. So how the host lab is also going to get benefited. So you also want to describe those, not just when you write the statement of purpose, you want to say that you have sort of mutual understanding, you can share knowledge between these two, the host lab and you. That's one thing I can think. What else I can say? Maybe I may have some other thing to say.
Yeah, I perfectly second. So this is a very important point that Mahipal mentioned. So the host is not only important to you, but you are also equally important to the host. So you will bring some expertise that you have gained in your previous career to the host lab. So that's point number one. I also think it's also very important for MSCA fellowships to actually say how good are you in connecting your ideas to a general audience, not necessarily by going outside, but what evidence you have to actually pass on your knowledge to either school seminars or outreach activities, and what exactly are the things that you are going to do for connecting, because this is an extremely prestigious fellowship provided by the European Union, and they want to actually see an evidence whether you are good in connecting to general audience as a researcher. So that's one of the key point. I think if you also have an impact, or whether you have really thought about the key details about whether your proposed project would lead to any intellectual property rights, and whether it is applied enough to also explore in that area, but it need not necessarily be in each and every project. But if your project is applied enough, do show the reviewer panel that you have thought well enough to take it forward.
So I'm just going to invite some people to speak, to ask their questions in person. And I just want to put one thing out for those of you who are sending in questions. Kind of use this opportunity to get insights and advice from Amay and Mahipal, and maybe questions related to your exact eligibility and what are the exact parts of the kind of application package. These are more likely to be available on the fellowship website. So maybe if you could make use of this time to get Amay and Mahipal's insights. So Silam Barasan, I have given you permission to talk. Could you unmute yourself and ask your question to Mahipal and Amey? Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Also for the nice presentation. My question is, nowadays we have to move from one postdoc to another postdoc if we get some good supervisor or good lab, right? For example, if I move from one year of postdoc to another postdoc, so in this 1 year I couldn't progress well, or I couldn't get any good publications. So how to overcome this moving? Because when we apply for funding agency, how to explain our progress? Um, um, for example, we don't have any publication in this 1 year period. Is it okay to write a proposal or something like that? Or because you both have this short-term.
I understand your question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, I think I was in the same situation as you're describing now. So I was sort of finishing my first year of postdoc when I was applying for the second postdoc, like that was in the current one. But then by then I did not have really papers from the current lab. Obviously, 1 year is a short time for doing research. I don't think the reviewers would really expect you to publish within that time. But what you can do is that, explain what you actually sort of gained. What are the sort of knowledge, like what is the knowledge that you gained there, and what are the networks you created there being there in 1 year, and whatever be the positive things that you can explain. Like if you can actually make it a preprint from there, write a preprint and then post on bioarchive, which is not peer reviewed, but which could be actually much quicker, right? Once you write your paper, you can actually post there. So that can actually show that you have the draft ready, or you have the paper ready, but it's under review sort of. So those are the things I could say that you could do that, but I don't think that would be negative if you don't have a paper within 1 year. So usually people are okay, but then of course, you want to have, as a full CV, you want to have a good CV that you want to show that you can do this award.
Thanks, Mahipal. Nalini, so Nalini has, I think, from your question, it looks like you're in the process of applying and you have a specific question. Go ahead, Nalini. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, hi both of you. Thanks for the talk. So I'm in the process of actually writing my application now, and hopefully in the last 2 weeks I have. So this question is that something in part A which allows us to validate a form. So it says that you can go to the there's something called as NCP where we can validate our form. So what does that mean?
So NCP is actually something called National Contact Point. Is for every country, every European country has a NCP for basically dealing with the Marie Curie Fellowship or other things also. But for now, I would not think there is any need for you to contact NCP. You just need to be in contact with your host institution more, and also the grant managers there. They need to sort of give you a number. They need to sort of approve your application from their side. Otherwise, I don't see a reason that you need to contact NCP. That's what I remember from my application time. Am I correct? Or?
I think Nalini, Mahipal is completely right. NCP is mainly to help you with all the aspects of the proposal. But in terms of validation, you just need the layer, which is the legal representative of your institute, who should be able to see your proposal once you submit it, and should validate your proposal. So there's no connection of NCP in that point, actually.
Okay, so basically, as long as my host supervisor is a part of the draft, then I think that should be enough.
Yeah.
Okay, and I have another question also regarding the budget. So I see that in part A, there's a section called as budget, wherein it's already pre-filled there because my university was already there as a part of the PIC initially. So my university and the country, all the details are already mentioned. So I can't really change anything. So, so that's more like just for me to just see it. So is there any other section am I supposed to specifically talk about budget in the entire form?
No. So you don't need to talk about anything because in MSCA, the budget is fixed as per your country of beneficiary. So I think you don't need to talk anything about the budget at any point in the proposal. Just remember to mention this organizational thing at the end of the proposal, like what actually your host has in terms of the infrastructure. So that's one sheet which is needed. But other than that, you are all set to go.
Thanks, Nalini. So I'm gonna read out a few questions from the Q&A box now. And so just I see some of the questions have come in from master students, and you are actually a bit away in your journey towards applying for an MSCA fellowship. So maybe for now, I'm going to first draw upon people who are closer to submitting an application, in the process of writing an application, and you can glean insights from this conversation as a whole. So one question comes in. Okay, so can there be two host labs? Can you split your tenure between two labs?
I'm not sure if that's actually allowed.
Okay,
I
so
think it's not possible, probably, but yeah, check the rule book. I mean, they have basically, so they
this
put
is a
the
question that
resource,
you could write to the
yeah,
organization and get.
also to your host, like basically, yeah, legal representative
Okay.
in your institute. I would say, yeah, I'm not quite sure.
So this is a question that might be good for the kind of 1/3 of the people who have said they're applying next year, and that is, how well in advance should one start writing the proposal?
I think
Because it involves networking and finding a host as well. So the entire process is
I
actually
see.
longer than just writing a
I see.
proposal, right?
Yeah, yeah. So for my case, at least, like, I have like basically, like, you need to in contact with your host PI and then get approval that, you can basically go there and do your postdoc there. For my, I think I got acceptance, like, basically, like, we agreed to like do this, like, in 3 months in advance of this fellowship. But I think if it is a bit more advanced, like, earlier, it's better. The 3 months was really short because, you need to formulate your research question also, and then, start to write and then get draft, and everything has to be done. And also while you're doing your PhD, I think, you also want to do your work there. I think it would be better if you start, like, I don't know, 8 months in advance or maybe a year, have that as much time as possible. Like, in more, like, in some cases, people also join the lab and then they start to write. That's also completely fine. They actually see it as positive. So my colleague, where I was doing my first postdoc, she also wrote, like, we wrote, like, simultaneously. She also got very positive feedback and she got the fellowship. Basically, she was there already 6 months into her postdoc, and then she got sort of a preliminary data that she can show that, hey, I started to work. I already got some experience here, so I know the lab well. That actually was seen positive. So if you already there, that's also okay. So start apply as soon as possible. Like, I would say, like, year in advance also is great.
So maybe Amay, you could address the next question. It says the IF, the individual fellowships, has 4 categories. So how do the standard fellowships differ from the career restart panel 1? And how do you rate? Maybe we can just answer. How do the standard differ from the career restart
So
fellowships?
I think the main difference between the career restart and the standard fellowship is that in the career restart you need to have at least a career break of 12 months or more in your career just before the deadline of the MSCA proposal. So I think if you can fulfill that one, then you can submit your proposal in the career restart panel. It's also possible to submit your proposal in the standard panel if you have a career break, because the only difference between CAR and IF is that in IF you can choose the individual stream that your proposal should be evaluated in, like life science, the chemical science, and so on. Whereas in the CAR panel, there's nothing like that. You just apply in CAR and your proposal will be evaluated in CAR without the specific subject stream.
Thank you. Mahipal, is anything you wanted to add to that, or does that cover it? Okay, so there are a few questions. I'm going to club them together, and they talk about what is the best time for applying, not time as in time in terms of your career, your scientific journey. So is it when you have just joined a lab, as Mahipal was alluding to, like when you've just joined the lab, you've had time to do some initial experiments? Is it when you're a senior PhD, you should start thinking about, moving, when you're starting thinking about moving for your postdoc? So what is the correct time to kind of apply, and how different should your proposal be from your PhD work? If you're thinking of doing this at the point when you're still a senior PhD student, how much should your proposed project deviate from your current project?
Yeah, so maybe I can start answering that one. So as Mahipal actually said, there are different ways to actually think about how to start, or what's the point that you think that you have to start now to think towards a proposal. So at least in my case, I started thinking 1.5 years ago, before I actually wanted to apply. The reason was that I was looking broadly for a topic that I want to continue as in my independent career. And after I actually wrote down some of the key ideas that I want to pursue, I started looking for host labs, which work complementary in that area, and wherein I could contact the PI and say that, look, this is my idea, and I want to come to your lab to do a Marie Curie project and take that idea with me further to have my own lab. So this was fine. It worked fine well. So this is one of the way that you can start thinking, writing out your key points, and then building towards. So coming to the second point, how different it should be from your PhD. The main point I see here is you have to agree before finishing your PhD with your PhD supervisor that you can take the topic independently to a different lab, because movement MSCA project, and so you cannot pursue that PhD connection work in your PhD lab. So that would be the main drawback. But if you are able to provide a sufficient evidence and also a key potential that would open new advances in that stream, it should be perfectly fine, at least in my view.
Thanks, Amay. So some of you have asked for where you can find successful MSCA proposals for reference. So we have, I have put some links in the chat box. So these are the ones that Amay highlighted during his presentation as well. So do take a look at this. And there's also a kind of guidebook for helping you write your MSCA proposal. So these should give you some idea as to how
I think one point to mention is also talk to your grants office at your host institute, because every grants office actually compiles all the successful proposal from that particular institute over several previous years. So you can talk to your grant office and they should be able to help you with some copies of successful proposals.
Definitely. Thank you. So I'm going to I'm going to ask another kind of combined question. And so this is touching a bit upon what was mentioned of don't be over ambitious, like write a risky proposal, but don't be over ambitious. So someone's asking if you could expand upon that, and specifically also since this is I think a 12 to 24 month fellowship, what would you recommend as a list of deliverables that is just the correct level of ambition, but doesn't seem like you're putting in more than can be done in the time period? Mahipal, would you like to start?
Yeah, maybe I can start. So basically, as I said, have that bigger project proposal, of course, but then narrow it down to a small project that you want to do within 2 years. As a deliverable, I would say that, I don't know. So basically deliverables usually are the publications, right? Maybe if you're going to sort of develop a technology for sort of addressing that question that you want to do, say that, you want to write a paper on the technology that you want to develop, and also a paper on the whole project. Basically, that should be enough, more than enough, I would say. So they don't look for 10 papers from two years. It's not going to work like that, right? So basically, I would say aware of what can be done within 2 years. Be realistic, in terms of what you're going to write in the deliverables. Don't say that I'm going to have 2-3 nature papers or whatever CNS papers published in few years of this work. You can also say that the host lab has been doing this work in this particular direction I'm going to take. From there I will diverge into different direction. Explain that you're not going to get stuck in the institute, or your ideas are not going to stop there. That whatever you're developing in the host institute, as Amay said, that basically he discussed with his mentor, saying you can come like with your own idea and then develop that one and then take it with you. That's also one way of doing. If the host lab is already doing something like in the direction that you want to do, you can also mention that, listen, they already developed, they have all the infrastructure. I can right away go there and then have this idea I can execute there and then sort of go in the different direction. Sort of those things you can explain. That's what I would say.
So we're almost nearing the end of time. Maybe we can continue for a few minutes beyond 4. So is there anybody, if you want to ask a question, maybe we can take one more live question now. So if you have a question that hasn't been answered, do come forward. Okay. Go ahead, Tanmay. Tanmay?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, go
Oh,
ahead.
hi. Very nice talk by both of the speakers. So I have one question for Dr. Ganji is how do you find the grant managers? So you said that you find the grant managers from your university.
Yeah, so for us, there is a person like, we know that like talk to your host, like basically host PI. So he would know those people. For us, like basically I was in a department. I mean, the host manager, the grant manager was talking was from my previous lab, not in the host lab, because I was there for like, 6-7 years. I know the environment well. Of course, you can ask like, when it comes to these kind of things, people are sort of willing to help. If that's their job, like, they will take it and help you. So I asked the previous lab where I was like, as a PhD and postdoc, I asked those grant managers there to help me because I know them sort of by seeing them every day. But you can also ask your post PI who would know who are the people dealing with these kind of things in the institute. They will help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I have another question is, so do you have any idea about how much preliminary data one should include to make your proposal strong, or what one should?
Not necessarily strong, I would say. I mean, at least in my case, I didn't have any preliminary data, of course, and I took some figures from the previously published papers from my host lab because, like, the technology that I'm going to use from the lab. So that's fine. You refer to those papers, you can say. But if you have preliminary data, that's also good. But don't put like sort of already a publication, like, enough, like whatever the data is enough for a paper. That much data, if you put, it sort of says that you already have done, and then it may not work well, I guess, in that case. So, but then having like a preliminary data, which it doesn't have to speak itself a lot as a story, but say that it's sort of like giving you steps, like stepping stones. That's good enough.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I'll just run through 2, and I think they can be fairly short questions. So one is from Kirtana. How many references do you consider ideal for an application? Is there any requirement set forth by the fellowship?
No, at least the MSCA doesn't require any references actually.
Okay, perfect. So that's that. And another question has come about in a few different flavors. Is there any specific topic, or is this like a pan life sciences? So can all different disciplines that fall under life sciences, because that's our audience today, can they all apply for this fellowship? Is there certain areas that are in focus, say molecular biology, ecology, etc.? Is there anything?
I don't think there is anything specifically focused area like that, but myself, I was trained in physics, so I did my master's and bachelor's in physics now, and then I applied in like biosciences basically. So choose that area carefully, that sort of it fits well, like wherever your project fits, apply into that particular category. That's what I would say. But otherwise, they do not have any preferred area. Sort of, they want to spend. Like sort of they distribute equally, I think, between all the different subjects. Right, Ame? Or?
I think the evaluation criteria or subject is same. But one important point to mention is you are able to actually select the keywords that your proposal best fits in. So for example, if you select life science, you can still select 4 more keywords based on which the panel actually selects the reviewers. So do select that keywords more wisely in life science, to which your proposal matches quite well.
Perfect. So I think with this, we have gone through most of the questions. In case your question hasn't been answered, maybe you could contact Amay Mahipal. You could refer to the website. They might even have a contact person there for specifics related to the fellowship. So thank you so much, Amya and Mahipal. This has been a wonderfully insightful conversation. And I hope that those of you who haven't had a chance to listen to the podcast where Amya and Mahipal share some of their other aspects of their journey in this process, you visit that as well. So just before we sign off, I want to bring it to everyone's notice again that I had put some of the resource materials in the chat box. I hope that everybody has had a chance to see them, download them, go through them. So I see the questions are still coming in. Someone's asking if we can give advice. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, and I think the session could go on for quite a while. So what I do want to say when we end is that this is kind of an ongoing process, this kind of mentorship that we're trying to do under this International Grants Awareness Program. So do kind of contact the speakers, do contact us, do continue engaging, because I'm sure the questions are going to continue beyond this session. So thank you all for joining this. To all the participants, thank you so much, Amay. Thank you so much, Mahipal, for this kind of continued engagement, which has now gone across 3 resources. So the informational article, the podcast, and now the Ask Me Anything webinar. I think it's been very, very useful, especially for people who are at this juncture in applying. So for those who are applying this year, good luck with your applications. As I mentioned, we do have other resources, other iGAP resources that are available on our website. Do visit that, do have a look at them. And of course, engage with us. So you can do this either via our social media platforms, our social media accounts, or you can write to us at hello@indiabioscience.org. Let us know what kind of resources you're looking for, especially under the kind of purview of the iGAP project. Give us feedback on how you found the resources that have been generated so far. And I wanted to tell all of you this before, but a kind of side note on how this resource was actually generated is that we recently conducted a grant writing workshop, and we asked people, which fellowship are you writing for? And a large number of people said that they're applying for the MSCA Fellowship. So these resources were really driven by kind of what the community was looking for at this point of time. So that's why do let us know what you're looking for, and it will shape the resources that come out from us. So with that, I'll say thank you to Amay, Mahipal. Thank you, Smita Jain, as well, for joining us and for being a co-host on this webinar. And with that, wish you all a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was great part.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amay and Mahipal.
Yeah, thank you
It
very
was
much.
lovely to have you both here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was nice to give some suggestions, like share our experiences. It was great. Thank you very much.
With that, I'm going to end the session now.